If truth is universal, why do human beings fight to claim it? Across history, every ideology, religion, and philosophy has tried to brand its own version of truth. But truth, by its nature, cannot be contained. It is not a possession to guard, but a perception to realize. Shams Tabrizi, the 13th century mystic who transformed Rumi's consciousness, taught that truth is like sunlight. It illuminates all equally, yet the ego tries to capture it in mirrors of belief and identity. The more tightly we hold it, the dimmer it becomes. From a psychological point of view, this possessiveness has deep roots. The human brain seeks what researchers call cognitive closure, the desire for firm answers and stable worldviews. Ambiguity feels unsafe because it threatens the brain's sense of control. So, we cling to certainty, mistaking it for truth. As Shams would argue, truth does not belong to anyone. It reveals itself only when ownership dissolves. In the modern world, this ancient problem has multiplied. We live in an age of information, abundance, and yet, paradoxically, of intellectual poverty. Everyone claims authority: political leaders, influencers, scientists, even algorithms. Social media platforms amplify certainty, not inquiry. Their design rewards emotional conviction because strong opinions generate engagement. But psychologically, this has a cost. Each time our worldview is affirmed, the brain releases dopamine, the same neurochemical that reinforces habits. This is called belief attachment. It turns ideas into emotional possessions. Conversely, when someone challenges those beliefs, the brain interprets it as pain. Studies show that cognitive dissonance activates the anterior cingulate cortex, the same neural network triggered by physical injury. In other words, disagreement hurts. As a result, people defend opinions as if defending life itself. Political, religious, and even scientific discourse becomes territorial. Truth turns tribal, a battlefield of egos rather than a shared exploration of reality. To understand a way beyond this, we return to the uncompromising wisdom of Shah Shams Tabrizi, a wandering dervish and the teacher who ignited Rumi's transformation. Shams was notorious for breaking conventions. His method was not gentle persuasion, it was shock. He dismantled dogma to reveal direct perception. For Shams, divine truth is infinite. It cannot be confined to scriptures, sects, or symbols. He said, "Those who claim to own truth worship their reflection, not God. To own truth is to separate oneself from it. To live truth is to vanish within it." His stance parallels Socratic ignorance, the recognition that wisdom begins by admitting one's own unknowing. In modern philosophy, this corresponds to fallibilism, the view that all knowledge is provisional, open to correction. Shams was centuries ahead of this intellectual humility. His target was not religion, but the ego hiding within it. Shams taught that truth reflects only in a purified heart, one free from self-interest and bias. Belief, he said, is like dust on a mirror. It can point toward light, but it also distorts the reflection. In psychological terms, this aligns with selective attention bias, the tendency to perceive information that confirms our expectations. When egoic identification loosens, perception widens. Imagine two people witnessing the same event. One sees insult, the other lesson. The difference lies not in the event, but in the lens of consciousness. From a neuroscientific perspective, predictive processing theory shows that perception is a kind of hypothesis testing. The brain predicts reality more than it receives it. The ego prefers predictability over accuracy because uncertainty feels unsafe. To perceive truth, therefore, one must allow the nervous system to tolerate ambiguity, to look without pre-deciding. For Shams, truth is revealed in relationship between the human and the divine, self and other, observer and observed. In modern science, a similar pattern appears. In quantum physics, observation itself influences outcomes. The observer is part of the system. In constructivist psychology, meaning is co-created through interaction. Truth is not stored inside one person, it emerges between people. That is why Shams valued dialogue as sacred practice. He believed that when two sincere minds meet without agenda, truth manifests in the space between them. Certainty isolates, dialogue connects. And the moment we claim ownership, saying I alone am right, we stop listening. Shams identified the ego as the counterfeit owner of truth. The ego wants to be right, not real. It seeks control over reality rather than participation in it. Modern psychology describes this through self-serving bias and confirmation bias, mechanisms that protect one's identity. Neuroscientifically, this is sustained by the default mode network, the brain circuit responsible for self-referential thought and narrative identity. When active, it filters all experience through me. Meditation and contemplative silence, by contrast, quiet this network, a state researchers call ego dissolution. In such moments, perception becomes less filtered and more direct. Shams viewed this not as mystical escapism, but as the return to clarity. Fanaticism, he warned, is merely ego disguised as faith. The louder one declares possession of truth. The farther one drifts from it. Perhaps Shams's most radical idea was that truth is alive. It is not a static formula, but a living reality that discloses itself in proportion to one's consciousness. He compared it to light. Its intensity and angle shift as the observer moves. What was true for you yesterday may deepen tomorrow. Science echoes this view. Thomas Kuhn's work on paradigm shifts shows that scientific truths evolve. They are replaced when new evidence reframes perception. Likewise, spiritual insight is progressive. Each stage of awareness reveals a higher fidelity of reality. For Shams, claiming final truth was like freezing the sun in a jar. The light you keep becomes darkness. This brings us to two of Shams's most profound paradoxes. Paradox 1. The moment you claim truth, you lose it. Ownership creates separation, me versus truth. But truth, in its essence, is non-dual awareness. The observer and the observed are one field. Paradox 2. Multiple perspectives can be simultaneously valid without contradiction. Physics already accepts this. Light behaves both as a wave and as a particle. Which description fits depends on context. Likewise, reality may present different facets to different levels of consciousness. A common misunderstanding is that Shams promoted relativism, that all truths are equal. In fact, he promoted experientialism. Truth exists objectively, but can only be realized subjectively. You cannot own truth any more than you can own the taste of water. You can only experience it directly. Modern cognitive science and phenomenology echo this insight. The mind does not merely record reality, it constructs it. Husserl and Merleau-Ponty described perception as co-emergent. The world appears through the act of seeing. In this sense, Shams was describing not theology but the structure of consciousness itself. Shams's teaching is not abstract mysticism. It offers tangible practices for modern minds. The first step is acknowledging uncertainty. Research on epistemic humility shows that people who recognize their fallibility make better decisions, cooperate more easily, and learn faster. Shams would call this emptying the cup. The less you cling to being right, the more reality can educate you. Notice the bodily reaction when someone contradicts you, a tightening in the chest or a flare of defensiveness. That is the amygdala signaling threat. In that moment, pause. Slow your breathing. This engages the prefrontal cortex, restoring curiosity over fear. Shams's instruction to burn the idol of opinion was an early form of this emotional regulation practice. For Shams, conversation was sacred because truth appears between hearts in presence. Modern interpersonal neurobiology confirms that genuine dialogue synchronizes neural rhythms between participants, literally aligning minds. Listening without agenda is not passivity. It is active truth-seeking. Finally, treat your beliefs as working models, not absolute facts. Cognitive flexibility training in psychology shows that adaptability reduces anxiety and improves resilience. Each time you revise a belief, the brain rewires itself. An act of living intelligence, mirroring Shams's view that truth is ever unfolding. Truth, then, is not something to possess, it is something to participate in. Ownership blinds. Humility reveals. When the ego withdraws its claim, awareness becomes transparent to reality itself. In such moments, thought, feeling, and perception align. What neuroscience calls neural integration, when both hemispheres of the brain operate in coherence. In Sufi language, this is the unity of being, the harmony between knower and known. Shams Tabrizi's forbidden secret is therefore not esoteric at all. It is a psychological principle and a spiritual law. The quieter the self becomes, the more truth shines through it. Truth does not belong to you. You belong to the truth.